Hello, my name is M.W.Burnette. I am a home studio music producer, songwriter, and recording artist, and this is my video diary. So today I want to talk a little bit about what I see as coming changes to the music business and the way that we all consume and listen to music that we love. In my previous job, we had an expression that we used called feeding the bulldog. What that meant was the bulldog represents your business operating expenses. So the bulldog has a big appetite, and to feed all of that, you've got to generate work. So there's two ways, generally speaking, that you can do that. You can either sell a lot of low-cost items so that you have just a little bit of product, but you make up for it in quantity, and that's how you cover your expenses and feed the bulldog. The other alternative is you don't sell quite as many widgets or whatever, but each one of them has a higher value. So you sell fewer products, but your profit margin is higher, and that's how you feed the bulldog that way. Now, of those two, it's usually easier to sell just a few high price items to feed the bulldog. There's just less work involved. There's less inventory, less overhead that you got to take care of that way. So if you can do that, that's what you'd kind of prefer to do. So here's how that relates to the changes that I see in the music business. Okay, so historically, it's been really expensive to produce music. Recording studios were expensive. All the equipment was crazy expensive. Then once you produced an album, you had to distribute it, so all of those networks were expensive. All of the advertising costed money. You had to have relationships with radio programmers and television programmers and so on and so forth. You had to have all of the, I guess I mentioned the advertising already, but all of those different kind of related industries, there was cost associated with all of them, and in every case that cost was high. So because of that, you or me couldn't afford to go off and make an album. The only way that you could really afford to do that was to have a record company backing you up. And again, there's cost associated with that because the record company has all of their employees that they have to pay. So this gets to be a big bulldog that has to be fed, right? And so another part of this equation is because people aren't willing to spend buku dinero just on an album. So you've got a product that's got a really high upfront cost that you have to cover with kind of a relatively small margin on the back end. So that forces you to sell lots and lots and lots of them just to recoup your upfront cost. So that's the way this used to work. Well, things have changed now because we now have computers, we have the internet, and it's shaking up the music industry. The big major labels are really kind of they feel the ground shifting under them, and they're not really sure just exactly what to do about it. Their old model hasn't collapsed yet, but they see this coming, I think. But here's what I think is happening now with computer technology. You can record an album in your basement, and for $1,000 or less, you can put together your home studio, and you've got access to equipment that was only available in the most advanced recording studios in the world, 20 years ago. So you can just, on that little shoestring budget, you can produce music as long as you've got the skills and the know-how to operate that equipment. If you've got that kind of know-how, you can produce music to rival the stuff that the major labels are producing for next to nothing. And then because of the internet, as long as you've got people to send your music to, if you've got a fan base, you can email them songs. You can post things, on Google, just on Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever, and let people download your music for free if they want to. So your distribution cost is zero. The only thing that really remains is your advertising and promotion, and that now has started to open up for independent artists to be able to access. So now the same kind of tools that the major labels were using in their promotion campaigns are available to independent artists. And so what this has done is it's really leveled the playing field for everybody. I mean, not entirely. The major labels have still got, they've still got an advantage. They've got a lot of money backing them up. They've got all of those relationships and networks with the radio and the television broadcast channels. And so they're able to lean on those relationships. And again, radio is still the main discovery platform for new music. So the major labels have still got that advantage working for them. But the playing field now is a whole lot more level than it ever has been before. And so what I think is going to happen over the course of, say, the next 5-10 years, something like that, is because the record companies have still got that big bulldog that they've got to feed, they've got two options. They can either spend their efforts on creating lots and lots of products, making a small profit off of each one of them, but making up for it in quantity, or they can focus their efforts on just a smaller contingent of artists that are going to sell lots of albums. And I think given those options, they're going to go for the second one. It's a whole lot easier to feed that bulldog on just a few artists because you've got that limited product line that you have to support. And it's a whole lot less resource intensive to focus your efforts on that group of a few artists rather than thousands. So this gives independent artists a big opportunity to fill all of the gaps that the major labels are going to leave behind. I think of it kind of like hamburgers. You can go to McDonald's or Burger King or Hardee's or whatever, and you can get a fast food hamburger that's, decent. It's okay. It's not going to be the very best hamburger that you ever had. Most likely, the best hamburger that you ever had came from a little mom and pop shop in your hometown. And you've got your favorite one. And you know who it is right now. And you know that you go to that place and you're probably going to potentially spend less money on it than you would going to McDonald's or Burger King or whatever. And that hamburger's 10 times better than a Big Mac. You know that it is. But the thing is, not everybody else in the world is going to agree with you. You're going to love that place, but, I might not. And then the place that I want to go to get the very best hamburger in the world, you may not care for that at all. It becomes more specific to our individual tastes. And I think music is going to kind of do the same thing. I think that the major labels are going to be like McDonald's and Burger King. They're going to have a small lineup of artists that have a very broad, a very wide, but not very deep appeal. So lots and lots of people are going to listen to, well, I don't want to name names because I don't want to pick somebody that you just really love and say that they're a ho-hum artist. But let's just say this. You're going to have lots of major label artists that have very broad appeal. Conversely, you're going to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of independent artists with very, very specific appeal. So there'll be, big time major label famous artists that you listen to and you like. But your very favorite artist is most likely going to be an independent artist. And it's going to be like every song that they write, it's like they're reading your mind. And I think we're getting to that point right now because Spotify's recommendation engine works that way. Is it looks at your listening preferences and recommends music based on what you like. And independent artists have access to Spotify just like the majors do. So if you like independent artists, you can put them in your playlist. You can label them as your favorites, and you're just as likely to hear their music as you are, somebody from Columbia or Sony or Arista or whomever. The one drawback right now, I think, is that Spotify and other engines like that have not quite worked out a really good way to recommend new music, how to identify it, how to quantify it. The way that Spotify's algorithm tends to work is it goes out and searches around the internet. When a new song gets uploaded to Spotify, Spotify gives that song a kind of a grade. And that grade is based on a whole lot of information. It goes out and it searches the internet and it finds where people are talking about that song, if it's mentioned in music blogs or in news articles or that sort of thing. And kind of the more buzz there is around this new song, the more likely it is to show up in a recommendation engine. Well, if you've got a brand spanking new song that hasn't generated any kind of buzz like that, then your recommendation score is going to be kind of low. So that is the challenge that Spotify and Pandora and so on have going into the years ahead. But I think that's I just having seen the way that streaming platforms have changed the whole face of this industry over the course of the last 10 years. Thinking what's going to happen in the next 10 years, I think that we're probably going to resolve that problem. And that artificial intelligence, that machine learning is just going to get better and better and better. It's going to be able to find that new music like I'm talking about. And it's going to be able to connect new music with the people most likely to just really love it. So, anyway, I don't know that that's necessarily going to make a lot of independent artists rich musicians, but I think that it is going to open up the opportunity for a lot of independent musicians to make a living. Because, just like your mom and pop hamburger place, they don't say on the billboard out front that they've sold 3.8 billion hamburgers, but they don't have to, because it's only that one store. It's not an international corporation that has to be selling hamburgers on 7 continents. They've just got to be selling hamburgers in that neighborhood. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with independent artists. They don't have to have a global audience anymore, or probably will have a global audience, but it doesn't have to be you don't have to sell gold records in order to make a living at this. You can, make do selling a few thousand maybe, and some T-shirts and some other merchandise, that sort of thing, and make a living that way. You might not be making 6 figures or multi-million dollars, that kind of thing, but maybe you can make enough to get by. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out over the next few years. But that's kind of what I think is going to happen. So. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see if my predictions are right. Until next time, stay groovy.